Greetings one and all. Welcome to the Holy Land, the Holy Apple, the Holy Hilltop, Tal Binyamin. We are on the 14th day of the month of Tammuz 5783. This is a two-part series, I hope. Hope it doesn't go three. Hope we could do it in two. And then there will be a break for some time. I run a camp coming up in a couple of days for 3 weeks, and then there's a break from the yeshivot. So we'll be back, God willing, at the beginning of Elul with God's help. Okay, this is a very, very fundamental class. Share it with people, get it out, get the message out. This is called Meet the New, Old, Jewish Anti-Semites. You got that right? I love many times the Arabs, when they're accused of being anti-Semites, they say, how could I be an anti-Semite? I'm a Semite. Well, let me tell you folks, there are many, many Jewish anti-Semites. I got it that Jews are Semites, but there are a lot of Jewish anti-Semites, self-haters. Okay, so we're going to meet a lot of new ones and a lot of old ones. I have a list, very partial. I wrote it up myself, it's partial. In the last 3.5 months, since the left in Israel, left wing in Israel, have come out and blocked roads and highways and various other violent actions of theirs, there has been a tremendous rise in anti-Semitic incidents in Israel. Now, I'm not talking about Arab versus Jew. We're talking about Jew versus religious Jews. I made a list to myself 20 events. The reason why I put down 20 because I ran out of paper, so I only stopped. I had to stop at 20. But this, once again, this is a partial list. We are hearing. I'm not going to drag you through the partial list, but I'll just give you a few classics so you could understand, you could dig what I'm saying. We'll even start from yesterday. Really, yesterday in Jerusalem on the train, the light rail train in Jerusalem, there's a man. He looks like maybe he's 50 or 60 years old. And he's sitting across, his seat is across from a religious man, from what they call the Haredi community, as it looks the way he's dressed. And he tells this secular person, a Jew, he tells this religious person that it's too bad that Hitler, may his name be erased, that's my addition. It's too bad that H did not finish off the job in Germany. Okay? He's on a train in Jerusalem. And by the way, just so you understand, Jerusalem is 73% religious and traditional. 73%. So if you ever been in Jerusalem, you know what I'm talking about. Get off. Take a bus, take a train, get off the streets and see who's around. 73% statistically. So this lowlife has the gall in a train. I mean, I was amazed that at least what I see being filmed, nobody got up to smack the guy. Just let him have it. The only person that's having a dialogue with him is the guy that's filming it. He's the only guy. Like, people are just, you see people on the train. Hey, anybody home? Hey, anybody home on the dome? So, that was just yesterday on the Jerusalem train. I have a daughter with her family. They live in a northern city called Harish. There have been incidents where people have tweeted that it's time we start killing the religious Jews. My little tweet over there. Kill. This message against religious Jews. The former head of the Israeli Secret Service, he was quoted, it made the headline of the newspapers, he was quoted saying that we in Israel, we also have a Hezbollah. We also have a Hezbollah. Who are they? They are the Haredi and the National Religious Haredim. In Hebrew they call them Chardalim. We have, right, you got it? The religious people in Israel are the Hezbollah. Right? You know those Hezbollah who are threatening, they have tens of thousands of missiles pointed to the land of Israel, and those that do all kinds of terror. That's who the religious community is. The head, former head of the Israeli Secret Service. On a popular podcast on the internet, a famous woman broadcaster calls the Haredi community by the name of blood suckers. Remember Dracula? I've come to suck your blood. Yes, Dracula is back. By popular demand, the Haredi community are blood suckers. And in Tel Aviv itself, there is a national religious, those knitted kippot, yeshiva. And they came down, a group of people came down to demonstrate against that yeshiva, that they should close the yeshiva. The same institution that does uncountable kindness to the community. If somebody needs, a few people to help kids that are troubled, they come out. They're volunteering all over the place in that community. And the gall of these people, and not only that, they wanted to bring live donkeys to this demonstration, pointing out that the religious, these national religious people with the knitted kippot, they're the donkeys. So they weren't allowed to, because it's considered to be the animals are suffering. They don't worry about other Jews suffering. They worry about the animals suffering. So they didn't bring their donkeys down to the demonstration. Instead, they had masks of donkeys. This was not the Democratic and Republican dispute here. So anyways, once again, folks, the list goes on and on and on. I have a partial list, 20 events in the last 3.5 months. Anti-Semitism by Israeli Jews. So the question is this a new phenomena, Or is this a very old phenomena? And that is our class today. The new anti-Semites that we see here in Israel, is this a new phenomena, or has this been around and they have many, many great teachers to learn from the last 4,000 years? Okay, so let's delve into it. This idea of the Jewish self-haters, the Jewish anti-Semites, the Jewish enemy from within, this is embedded, ingrained in the Torah, in the prophets, in the writings, what we call the Tanakh. Amazing. It's in each one of those books. So let's roll. Number one, if we look up in Leviticus 26:17, this verse was taken by our sages in the Safra, in the portion of Bechukotai, paragraph 24. Look it up. It says in this verse, these are the curses that we read, the blessings and the curses that we read twice a year, once before the holiday of Shavuot and once before the holiday of the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. So this verse, it says the following: I will bring upon you enemies from within. The Gentiles seek to destroy only the visible, unlike their Jewish counterparts, who search to destroy also the hidden elements. Once again, our sages, based on this verse, the verse, take a look at it. It first says that the Jewish people will be eliminated by our enemies. And then it says the enemies will subjugate you. But it uses two different expressions. One are the haters and one are the enemies. So why is it redundant? If you told me that the Jewish people were eliminated by the nations of the world, there's no more Jews to annihilate. They've all been eliminated. So what is this that you will be subjugated by your enemies? So our sages come and tell, these are two different cases. One is dealing with Gentiles in war, and the other one is dealing with Jews from within that will subjugate and terrorize and hate other Jews. And this enemy, our sages tell us, is much worse than the Gentile enemy. Because the Gentile enemy looks to destroy only what's visible to their eye, to their naked eye. The Jewish anti-Semite, self-hater, wishes to destroy not only the visible, but also the inner, also the hidden. Now, prophets, in Isaiah chapter 49, verse 17, the destroyers and those that lay you to waste shall come from thee. Amazing. The destroyers and ones that will lay you to waste will be from within. The commentator, the Yehudah David, says an amazing concept. Your destruction and suffering comes from the wicked within, not from God. Folks, did you get that? If you're still sitting down, if you haven't gotten up and screamed your head off, the Yehudah David, commentator, the Jewish destruction, we're not talking about a little, a little suffering here and there. We're talking about destruction and suffering. It is not from God. It is from the enemy within, the Jewish self-hater, the Jewish anti-Semite. Folks, we're going back thousands of years. Next, in Scriptures, Ketuvim, Psalms, chapter 119, verse 51. It says, King David said, the Zaydim, what that means, we'll get to it. The Zaydim mocked me, says King David, though I still cling onto the Torah of God. Who are these Zaydim that mock King David and the Torah that King David has to hold on, so to speak, cleave on to God and to the Torah? Who are these Zaydim? Transgressors, I guess in English. So listen to this. According to our giant Jewish law scholars, the Beit Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Cairo, the Eliyahu Rabbah, and the Aruch HaShulchan, written in the laws of Chanukah, Code of Jewish Law, 682, paragraph 1, the laws of Chanukah, Code of Jewish Law. All three of them say the same thing. That these Zaydim that King David was talking about, that he had to defend God and defend God's Torah from these Zaydim, from these transgressors. You got to be careful today, it's very close. Transgress and transgend, very close. Okay. So they say these are Jews who joined forces with the Syrian Greeks to defeat the religious Jews. Folks, clean out your ears. Q-tip them. Because you heard right. Listen to this. Amazing. On Hanukkah for 8 days, we say in our prayers, we say in our grace after meals, we say the Ala Nisim, thank you for the miracles. And then we talk about how all the tables were turned. The mighty fell into the hands of the minority, and the righteous fell into the hands, the wicked fell into the hands of the righteous, and the impure fell into the hands of the pure. And we have opposites, direct opposites. And then all of a sudden we have something that goes against the rules. The Zaydim, transgressors, were handed over, they were defeated, the transgressors, by those that were Torah scholars, learners of Torah. So why didn't it just say the opposite? The whole prayer of Ala Nisim, it's always opposite. Majority, minority, pure, impure, righteous, wicked. What is this Zaydim? So these great Torah, Jewish law scholars come by and tell us, we're talking about the Hellenists, the Jewish Hellenists, who joined forces with the Syrian Greeks during the time of the Second Temple. Some 2,200 years ago, joined forces with them to attack and to defeat Judaism, Torah Judaism. That's who King David is thanking God for giving him the strength to stand up against these Jewish anti-Semites, against these Jewish self-haters who have declared war against the Torah, against religious Jews. So folks, our new Israeli Jewish anti-Semites are just a recycle of yesteryear. And we go on. The enemy from within. We have two brothers, Jacob and Esau. Brothers. Their parents, unlike Abraham, who remarried an Egyptian woman named Hagar, and Ishmael is not the son of Sarah. This is, we have Isaac and Rebekah, both, they are the parents of these twins, Esau and Jacob. And our sages tell us in many places the hatred. In fact, there's a law that Esau hates Jacob. The nations hate the Jewish people. But who is this Esau? Esau is a person who, in the womb of the mother, Rebekah, tried to destroy, kill, murder Jacob. This is before they're born. When Jacob receives the blessings, he has to hide 34 years from his brother who wants to kill him. He is one of us. He is one of us. In fact, the Talmud in Tractate Kiddushin, page 18, side A, says there that Esau is a Jewish apostate. That's an amazing thing. He's called Israel. Of course, his offsprings, his children, his offsprings, they're already nations of the world. But he himself, he has the title of Israel. And he, from the inside, he seems like one of us. And he's trying, from conception on, he's trying to destroy Jacob, Torah, Judaism. This is the enemy from within, who is far more dangerous than the enemy outside. This continues. Esau had a spiritual messenger, angel. He was the spiritual advisor, mentor, guardian of Esau. This is, once again, this is part of Israel. The angel comes to destroy Jacob in the famous fight between the angel and Jacob. Jacob is victorious. However, his thigh is injured. Now Jacob is limping. Who cares where Jacob was injured? What does it matter? He was injured in his eyes, his ear, his nose, his teeth, his hands, his back, his foot, his thigh. What does it matter? Just tell us that Jacob was injured. No, like every single letter, every single word in the Torah is holy and it has tremendous depth and meaning. So we have to uncover the meaning here. So listen to this. We know that in the Tractate of Moed Katan, page 16.8, the thigh of a person represents the hidden aspect. It's something that you do not see. It's on the inside of your leg. We see a person's leg, but the thigh is on the inside. So, our sages tell us in Breshit Rabbah 77, chapter 77, paragraph 3, what does it mean that the spiritual mentor, angel of Esav, who's Jacob's brother, he's coming within. He is able to injure Jacob in one place. That is in the inner thigh. What does that mean? Our sages tell us that this is the generation of religious decrees. This represents Jacob being injured, means that there will come a time where there will be spiritual decrees against the Jewish people not to follow the Torah, not to do commandments. When is that? When did that begin? And what does it have to, once again, the inner thigh? I understand that Esav has his angel. They are connected to us. They are within us. The enemy within. But how does it all play out? So, Rabbi Yitzchak Huntner, of blessed memory, in his phenomenal book, Pachad Yitzchak, on the holidays, it's an 8-volume set, Pachad Yitzchak, volume on Hanukkah. Whole volume just on Hanukkah. It's on page 45. He brings down this incident where the angel of Esav is fighting Jacob. And Jacob gets hit in the inner thigh. And our sages come and tell us this represents spiritual decrees against the Jewish people, against Torah, against fulfillment of commandments. So Rabbi Yitzchak Huntner, he asked, when did this happen? What our sages tell us, when did it come into play? Tells us at the time of Hanukkah. This was the first experience the Jewish people had with decrees against Torah, decrees against commandments. And who was the major player during Hanukkah attacking Torah, attacking Judaism? Not what we were taught, the Syrian Greeks. They were second fiddle. But the gold medal went to the Jewish Hellenists. So now we understand. The first decrees against Torah, against Judaism, was provoked by Jewish Hellenists to the Greeks, to the Syrian Greeks. And that is represented by the inner thigh that was affected. Jacob is limping. Why are the Jewish people limping all these thousands of years? Because of the enemy within, because of those Jewish anti-Semites, because of the Jewish self-haters. That is why it's so important for God to tell us where Jacob was injured And what did it cause? It caused decrees, spiritual decrees against the Torah, against Judaism. Caused, instigated by Jews. That is why Rabbi Yitzchak Hunter says, we did not see in any previous exile Jews that became Egyptians. We don't have such a concept of Jews playing, dressing like Egyptians. We don't have in Assyria, we don't in the exile of Assyria, when they exiled the 10 tribes. We don't have Jews dressing up and playing the culture of the Assyrians and wanting to be like them. We don't have in Babylonia, we don't have Jews that are playing Babylonians to attack Judaism and the Torah and their brothers. The first place that we see this began with Esav. Esav, our brother, trying to eliminate, to murder Jacob during their entire history of life. Continuing on with Esav, our brother, mentor, spiritual angel, coming also to try to destroy Jacob from within. He is the representative of Esav, our brother. And listen to the words. Listen to the end words of Rabbi Yitzchak Hunter. This battle of the Hellenists continues every generation. If you think that's all, folks, no, this ain't Bugs Bunny. This is for all times. The beat goes on. This message of a battle of the ages is also echoed by the Maharal. He writes that in Ner Mitzvah, the first volume, he writes that the exile that we're in now, the exile of Esav, of Edom, the Christian exile, includes all previous three. Well, if it includes all previous three, that means we have a lot of Hellenists trying to destroy Jews, real Jews, Judaism, Torah, commandments, separation between us, trying to infuse the Jews with assimilated culture. There's canceled culture, and there's also assimilated culture, which should be canceled. This idea is not only in the Maharal, but it's also straight black and white. If you look up Vayikra Rabbah, chapter 13, paragraph 5. The saintly rabbi, one of the greats of America, Rabbi Aaron Kotler, of blessed memory, in his commentary on the Torah, on page 60, he writes in Genesis, on the portion of Vayishlach, he writes the following: "It is known that the Hellenists did far worse to the Jews than the Syrian Greeks." Listen, I'm going to read it again. "It is known that the Hellenists did far worse to the Jews than the Syrian Greeks did to the Jews." So we have, remember, we have our brother Esav from within trying to destroy us. We have Esav, our brother, and his spiritual angel trying to destroy us from within. Jacob gets hit within, in the inner thigh. And we move on. Joseph. Joseph is sold by his brothers. That is a pretty big thing. Your own brothers sell you. His own brothers wanted to kill him. Originally, the idea was to kill. Afterwards, there was a compromise, and he was sold into slavery, which probably meant the same thing of being killed eventually. What are your chances of making it? Joseph was sold into slavery. He was then put into prison. What are your chances of surviving the prison situation? So basically it's the same kind of idea. Our sages in fact tell us that prison is like death. So we have a situation where Joseph's own brothers are waging a war against Joseph. So listen to this amazing idea. In 1642, there was a tremendous Kabbalist. His name was Rabbi Natan Nata Shapira. And he lived in East Europe. He has a book, he has a few books. One of them is called Megalei Amukot, revealing the secrets, the depths of Torah. And he writes there in the portion, his commentary on the Torah, he writes there in the portion of Miketz, on the first verse, at the end of 2 years, Joseph leaves prison. In the times of the Greek king, the Jews were punished for selling of Joseph. Right? We celebrate every year Hanukkah. What are we celebrating? We're celebrating a situation where because of the sin of Joseph's brother selling their own brother, enemy within, because of the fact that they sold their own brother, we paid the price that the Jews, forget spiritually, physically were almost annihilated in the time of the Syrian Greeks. There was almost nothing left. If not for the Hashmonaim, for the Maccabees that stood up, I don't think, according to most opinion, we would not be here doing this video. So, Rabbi Natan Nata Shapira tells us in his book, look, the Jews were punished. The whole story of Hanukkah revolves because of the fact that brothers sold another brother, the enemy within. And to prove this, he brings in two proofs, the Megalei Amukot. Number one, do the numerical value of Joseph, 156. Do the numerical value of the king of Greece, also 156. Amazing. And he goes forward. We know that one of the decrees of the Greeks in the time of the Second Temple, the time of Hanukkah, was that the Jews had to take horns of an ox, and right on there, we do not have a share with the God of Israel. They had to deny their connection to the God of Israel. They had to engrave it on the horns of ox. Now, the Megalei Amukot tells us, we know that Joseph is always called by his icon is an ox. In fact, in the end of the Torah, in the end of Deuteronomy, Vizot HaBracha, Joseph is called many times, he's called an ox. So, once again, why did the Greeks insist on inscribing this message on horns? Put it on the wall, put it on your front door. What is this with the horns? No, they understood. The Gentiles, the Syrian Greeks understood an amazing concept, that they would bring to the surface this derogatory episode that happened with Jews, with brothers selling their own brother. And this would boomerang against the Jewish people. This would bring, so to speak, anger, the fury of God out on the Jewish people. And that's true. It almost happened that the Jewish people were destroyed, both physically and also spiritually. So these are the two proofs: the numerical value, the connection between Joseph and the period where the Greeks went to war against the Jews and the Hellenists went to war against the Jews, and also the Syrian Greeks trying to, so to speak, remind God of the fact that our own brothers sold Joseph. Joseph's own brothers sold Joseph. And this did boomerang in our face. And he finishes, the Megaleh Megillot finishes, Jews selling their own brothers is the root of the story of Hanukkah and the Hellenists. It is the core of our downfall. Amazing finish by the Megaleh Amukot. The root of Hanukkah. This year, when we come to celebrate Hanukkah, it should take on a whole different meaning to us. Understanding that we brought upon the Syrian Greeks by hatred from within, by brothers trying to eliminate the Esavs against Jacob, the 10 brothers against Joseph, from within, the enemy within. After Joseph, Moses, he's forced to leave Egypt for 60 years. Amazing. Why is that? Because Moses tried to save a Jew that was being beaten, and then that Jew goes and he turns over, he informs on Moses. I mean, can you fathom that idea? Can you wrap around that idea? Amazing! This Moses just saved you, and you're turning him over to the Egyptian government. Moses turns to the Jewish people and says, now I understand. Our sages tell us in the beginning of Exodus. What does that mean? Now I understand. What does Moses understand all of a sudden? Moses understands why we are suffering so much in Egypt. Why are the Jewish people suffering so much? Why can't we just do 400 years of exile? For example, Nachmanides writes that it was possible for the Jewish people, if not for various transgressions, we could have spent 400 years in the land of Israel, just the country would be run by another nation, but we could have lived peacefully with them. We would just be under their auspices, living in someone else's country. America is not our country, but there are many Jews, there are 6 million Jews or so, that live under their auspices. It's not their homeland, it's not their country, but that's where they live. Same too could have been, according to Nachmanides, that we could have remained in the land of Israel, not subjugated. We would just be under the auspices of a different rule, a different country that would rule over us. So Moses is trying to figure out, why are we suffering so much? 10,000 babies have been killed. And the Jewish people are suffering in slavery. Jews are being murdered and killed. Why are we suffering so much? Now I understand. Because of the fact that within, we have an enemy within. We have our own Jewish anti-Semites who turn us over to inform on us, to the authorities, to the Egyptian government. Now I understand why the Jewish people are suffering so much.
Now we can understand the Tosfot. In the Tractate of Shabbat, page 10, he asks a question. How come the Talmud says that the reason why we were subjugated in Egypt was because of the selling of Joseph? Well, we know that God told Abraham that his offspring would be subjugated for 400 years. So what is this new turn in events that Joseph, because of the selling of Joseph? So the Tosfot hits on the exact point that Moses was talking about. Why did we suffer so much in Egypt? That was the question. Right, we had to be in some kind of exile for 400 years, but how come it turned out? How did it roll into becoming such a nightmare? That was due to Jewish informers. That was due to the brothers, our own brothers, selling Joseph. That is the stem, that is the foundation, the root cause of our suffering. Not from the outside, from the within. In an amazing book, Imre Avraham, on volume 2, page 20, says an amazing idea. The goal of the Egyptians was to always use Jews to do their dirty work for them, because they understood this concept that no one could damage, no one can defeat and damage and destroy the Jewish people more than evil Jews from within. Jewish anti-Semites, Jewish self-haters. That's what they understood. So they put all the chess pieces into position. All the tax collectors, the Imre Avraham says, all the tax collectors were Jews. All the police were Jews. We know that when Pharaoh wanted to kill the Jewish males, who did he go to? He went to the head of the midwives of the Jewish people, Yocheved and Miriam. Why didn't he just go to the Egyptian women? Once again, the Imre Avraham amazingly says that they understood this foundation, this principle, that in order to bring down the Jewish people, you must bring in to the equation Jewish anti-Semites, Jewish self-haters, Jewish informers, Jewish assimilationists. That's what you have to do in order to defeat the Jewish people, annihilate the Jewish people. It's not going to come from the outside. It has to come from the inside. Amazingly, Moses never forgets this concept. 60 years go by, dear friends. 60. Moses was 20 years old when he killed this Egyptian. He comes back to Egypt 60 years later at the age of 80. He's coming back. He has a son, Mazal Tov, and it's time to circumcise the boy. But Moses delays it. We're not going to get into it right now. It's beyond the scope of this class. So Moses delays, for his reasons, this circumcision. And the baby is almost, God sends an angel down to, so to speak, to kill this baby. And in the last minute, Zipporah, Moses' wife, does the circumcision commandment. Now, it's time, as we know, when a baby is 8 days old, at the circumcision, we give a name. So the name that Moses chooses to give to his son is Eliezer. Why? Because God helped me and saved me from the sword of the Egyptians. I don't understand. Moses, God just saved you right today. Forget 60 years ago. Right today, God saved you from the angel of death,
who was about to devour your son. That should be the reason why you called him Eliezer, that God came to your assistance. Why are you going back to an event? Why are you going back to an event? Amazingly, Moses never forgot. He understood that foundation, that principle, that our worst enemies are from within. And he remembered that God saved him from the sword of Pharaoh when a fellow Jew informed on him. Moses was arrested, brought to trial, and almost murdered. God did a miracle for him to save him. He was almost killed. That's what stuck in Moses' mind more than the current miracle of God saving his 8-year-old baby, 8-day-old baby. Next, Moses. Moses, when leaving Egypt, he accepts the multitudes of Egyptians and different nations that lived, that were around at that time and wanted to convert. Moses did not consult with God. Instead, he accepted these converts. And since that acceptance, when leaving Egypt, until this very day, this very hour, very minute, we are still suffering from the fact that Moses, without consulting God, accepted these multitudes of nations, and they are the enemy within. They were accepted as Jews, but they are the enemy within. How many were there? They outnumbered by far the Jewish population. Let's look at the numbers. If we look up in the Mechilta, in the portion of Bo in Exodus, chapter 14, Rabbi Natan says that Rabbi Yishmael says there were 1.2 million of them. 1.2 million of them. Rabbi Akiva says there were 2.4 million. Rabbi Natan says 2.6 million. The Zohar Kadosh states in the book of Exodus, Kitisa, the portion, on page 191, side A. Many of these multitudes were statesmen, diplomats, leaders. They were the catalysts of most of the tragedies in the desert. The Gra writes in Tikkunei Zohar 59, the Erev Rav, these multitudes, are worse than the nations of the world, and they are the reason for the extended, long exile. Folks, listen to those words again. If not for the fact that we have Jewish anti-Semites, Jewish self-haters, if that's not enough, we also have now these multitudes, nations, that were accepted by Moses without consulting God. And since day one, they're instigating the Jewish people to go against the Torah, go against the commandments, not to go into the land of Israel. They're instigating the enemy within. Okay, so this is part 1 of the class. With God's help, we shall return next week, and we'll bring you, God willing, part 2. Till then.